I take a lot from that, and I never never look at a homeless person and just assume things, because I know a lot of homeless people that were very well off people at one point, and worked, and it can take something like that to trigger a psychological breakdown.
Earlier, we had touched on some of the ways being raised in this group disadvantaged you as an adult. And I understand there was even a point, and this is where we do a bit of a pivot here. I understand that there was even a point where you had become homeless. And like, how long did that last? And what do you credit to your upbringing as a witness to that state of affairs?
Well, I think having the mentality I had as a child, going into being a witness into marriage straight away, I never really had the opportunity to live as a single person. I went from mum and dad, or mum doing my washing and making my bed, to straight into being married and having a wife sort of taking care of those things. And then 20 years later, when we split up, my wife and I had no foundation of how life worked by myself, and I was very immature in that sense. I really didn't know how to look after myself, and I mean, we did okay, my wife and I. Although I have an autistic child, and we had that to sort of contend with, if you like. Jane could never work, so it was sort of a single income rather than her sort of working as well. So I worked hard, and we established a good life, and for the kids. And they got to an age where they didn't sort of need. Jane couldn't work because she had to be home for Ryan all the time, my son, and he got to an age where she could go out and work. And when that happened, and she had an income, I basically said, bye, I'm out of here, which was crazy. I was at a stage where I was abusing alcohol really badly, and also drugs, heavy drugs, and but still maintaining a working life. Like, I was a pretty well functioning drug addict, but got to the point where I had a bit of a breakdown, and I left my wife and went to America for a year. And that's when I came back and found Jane had sold the house. And so I didn't have that anymore. And now it was time to wake up to what you've done. And found myself in a situation where, okay, I don't have a house. I'm a single guy. I haven't got a job anymore. Finding a place to live is not easy. I didn't know that. I took it for granted that would be an easy thing. And so I really got more into drugs and alcohol to escape the reality of the situation I put myself in. And I couch surfed. So I had a number of friends that I just stayed at their houses, and it got to the point where even that ran out for me. So that's when I became really homeless, and had to sort of, either was nights I'd just sleep on a golf course or in a bus shelter.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There were times where I didn't eat for days, and
Oh, man.
I resorted to even stealing food from supermarkets and things like that just to survive. So I went down that path, and it was a path of, I'd regretted so much what I'd done with my family by leaving them, that I didn't actually want to live anymore. I became suicidal, and I made a couple of attempts there. And it took me a good 6 or 7 years to realise that, okay, life is worth living, and let's look towards the future now. And because there was no future for me. Just like, if I didn't wake up, that'd be a great thing. Whereas now it's entirely different. I see, my kids are my future, and I'm actually starting a course in mental health next month, which goes for 12 months. It's going to help me a lot, I'm sure. So in the past 3 years, I've really discovered life again, and I'm establishing it as a single person at the age of, I'm 50 in a couple of months. For the first time, really, as a single person, I'm establishing my life. So the 20 years I was married, I kind of really relied on the fact that I had it easy, you know, and I had a good wife, and things were pretty cushy, and didn't understand the harsh side of life, you know, that most people understand when they are a kid, you know, or they leave their parents without necessarily going straight into another cushy relationship with somebody that supersedes the mum and dad situation, if
Hmm.
that makes sense.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
yeah, good 7 years of doing that, Derek. And I travelled around Australia. You know, I managed to become a little bit of a gypsy. Not, I mean, I was forced to. It wasn't like by choice, but yeah, that was 7 years. But what a learning experience, though, man. I've come out of that with a much better attitude than what I had prior to it. And in terms of like homeless people and people in general, just look, understanding everyone now. Everyone has a story, and to be really let go of any judgments about people, and try to be as humble as I possibly can.
Yeah. Man, there's so much there. Like when I heard that, I was like, man, you've had a life. You've been through some stuff, you know. That's really tough.
Yeah.
And I can understand too when like coming from a background where you were sheltered in one way and then now into a new marriage, you're sheltered in a different way, even though you're an adult. You know,
Hold on.
I think that that could throw somebody into a kind of an existential crisis or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, well, not only that, I sort of, as you know, we associated with witnesses only. So there was always that awkwardness with worldly people, if you like, and
Yeah.
try to sort of fit in with them. I mean, we all experienced that as witnesses. Um, uh, that sort of changed during my years of working and being married. But when I was out on my own, I sort of resorted back to that personality of, you know, everyone else is in the world.
Yeah.
This is at the age of 40. I was thinking that, you know, worldly person. In the back of my mind, that was there always, and I had to overcome that. And that's amazing that it's taken this long for me to actually understand that we're all on the same page. You know, in most cases, people aren't worldly and Jehovah's Witnesses. That's a mentality that's taken a long time to address.
Yeah. Would you say that's the main lesson that you've learned and that the world should really learn about people from different walks of life is just not to judge and to give a bit of space for the fact that everybody came up in a different way? Is that what you'd say was the biggest realization for you?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. And once that realization kicks in, you feel less judged by the world. You know, it's a funny thing. Like even the Bible talks about that, about you know, judge and you will be judged.
Hmm.
Um, and I take a lot from that, and I never never look at a homeless person and just assume things, you know, because I know a lot of homeless people that were very well off people at one point, you know, and worked, and it can take something like that to trigger a psychological breakdown, and just turn somebody from success to what people consider to be the furthest thing from it, which is homelessness.
Yeah, living here in Victoria, BC, we've got a huge homeless population, and um, it is so heartbreaking. I think about it quite a lot. That's why I wanted to discuss this a little bit. Like, what do you think are some fairly reasonable reforms a country can make to reduce homelessness? I mean, maybe you can't solve it completely, but what can be done from the top down, do you think?
Well, I think ultimately homelessness is spawned from psychological issues. It's about how we deal with things in our brains, you know. Because any homeless person has the opportunity out here in Australia, Derek, which is we're so blessed to have the system that we do. Every homeless person has the opportunity to not be homeless. It's about their choices and the way they think. So I think at the heart of it, it's the psychological issue. So perhaps more money should be invested in mental health for people. We have a system here where, you know, you can go on the dole, they call it, where you get benefits from the government and live an okay, healthy life and have a place to live and feed yourself. Unfortunately, that gets abused by a lot of people, and they spend this money on drugs, and they just spiral and keep spiraling. So mental health is coupled with drugs, I think, because if you can't handle things, that tends to be where people go. So that needs to be addressed. As far as I said, the help that the government gives, we've got some charities out here which are fantastic, like the Salvation Army, St. Vincent de Paul, even the Uniting Church have helped me out quite a bit in the past in terms of feeding me, providing me with clothing, providing me with shelter until you can find your feet, and sort of they help you. Say, for instance, you using crack and you can't afford to live anywhere. What they'll do is that they'll put you into like a mental health care program where they'll accommodate you, but they'll also help you get off the crack. So they'll accommodate you until that happens, and so when it happens, you're able to use the money no longer for drugs, but to find yourself somewhere to live and food to eat and things like that. So we're pretty lucky here in Australia, I've got to say. We really, really are. Especially, I don't know about Canada so much, but I know compared to America, it's we're blessed.
Is that fundamentally how you rehabilitated yourself off of some of these addictions you had?
No, I think what it was is I had to just find something that to live for,
Really?
Yeah, it was like I had nothing to live for. I'd lost both my children, didn't want to know me, and actually it was a text that I got from my daughter one day 3 years ago, and it was, "Dad, I want nothing to do with you until you completely off drugs." And that was the day I moved I was living in a crack house where we get home invasions all the time, people coming in with knives. It was just mental. Everyone was on drugs. And I just thought, although I didn't care about myself, the text that I got made me see that it's not about me necessarily. It's about others and living for them because it's important to them. And I made the decision to leave that house within a week. And that's when I completely stopped using drugs. Haven't looked back.
Wow, that's amazing.
Still have a drink occasionally.
Well,
but you got to, yeah. But after heavy use of maybe close to 30 years of using like amphetamines, marijuana, and alcohol, I flipped it. Just a switch went off, mate.
Hey guys, did you like this video? You know what to do. And if something I mentioned today resonated with you, click one of them cards on this screen. I have lots of related content sure to interest you. Thanks as always for your views, and we'll see you next time.